In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the design and architecture of a microservice. This is something that's very popular now as we talk about software as a service. In other words, you create some software and you open it up to the world and you might charge per use, but the software that you write is available and sold as a service and can be implemented and integrated with other software packages as well. The integration piece is a major part of software development and information technology in general today. It's very much a hot topic as we get used to having one single view of data. In other words, most of the companies that you interact with are going to have a website and also a mobile app, maybe a physical location with a point of sale, or maybe some other kind of physical presence like a check-in kiosk for a hotel or an airline where you check in and your room's ready, or you can check in and get your boarding pass, something like that. So we have this concept of services where we take the business logic and we put it in a service layer, and that logic can be reused across multiple interfaces. So the architecture we're typically going to have is some kind of data store, could be multiple data stores. Then we're going to have a set of DAOs or data access objects for each of the major entity concepts in that data store. In our example this semester, that has been a plant DAO for a plant table in the database, a specimen DAO for a specimen table in the database, and then a photo DAO for a photo table in the database, and also physical photograph files or image files that are on our hard disk. So an image file could be a different type of persistence if you want to look at it that way. So the DAO layer, each of these classes is really looking at an independent entity concept. And then the service layer is where we tie all of that together with business logic. Now, once we have these three put together, we can offer it as software as a service. But it's very important that we keep our user interface logic out of these layers because we can attach multiple kinds of user interfaces to a software as a service or a microservice model like you see here. Our first implementation was a web-based user interface. So we had our UI layer, service layer, and data access layer. As I was going through and grading projects, if you put anything that was user interface specific in the service or DAO layer, I would call that out and say, don't do that. Because the next thing that we did is we created a web service, where a web service doesn't have a physical user interface, but instead we're exporting what this service can do via a standard XML model, and we're allowing other remote computing mechanisms to contact our service. If we had a JSF dependency in here, it would be very hard to expose it as a web service because we then would have been tying our service so that it could only be used with JFS, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. So while I know it can be confusing from time to time to have a UI layer and a service layer and a data access layer, this is what they all are, and this is why they're split into different layers. After we did the web service, we did a JSON service. So JSON is many times used to integrate data into mobile applications. It's a nice lightweight framework. It can be used for other things as well, but we see JSON quite a bit when we're dealing with mobile. So JSON is essentially a different user interface that's using the same plant microservice that we have built over the course of the last 5 months. Now, we're going to take a look at Swing, which is a Java-based, what we'll call a fat client or a rich client program, something that will run on a user's laptop or a user's PC. And once again, this user interface will integrate with our existing microservice. So microservices are very important because imagine this. Let's say that you're checking in for a flight. You check in on your phone and you select one seat. You get to the airport check-in kiosk and you're assigned a different seat. You go up to the counter and you have yet a different seat. If we have independent, isolated software, we don't have this level of integration that consumers expect today. Today, you expect that you can select a seat on a mobile app for, say, an airline, and as soon as you go to a kiosk, that kiosk is going to be up to date, and as soon as you go to a check-in counter, that check-in counter is going to be up to date. This is something that happens all the time. When I fly, a lot of times I will come with to a gate agent and I'll say, hey, yeah, I missed my connection or something like that. I see that I can take this other connection. Should I go ahead and accept it? And the gate agent and I are looking at the exact same data because essentially that seat selection is a microservice that's accessible to me via a mobile app, which is more than likely going to be JSON. It's accessible to the gate agent through something running on his or her computer, which is more than likely going to be a fat client application, maybe written in Swing. And it's accessible to the check-in kiosk, probably by the web service. Probably a third party wrote that user interface and talked via a web service. And if I happen to have my laptop with me, I can go to the airline's website and I can access the same data over the web. So what's important is all of these different user interfaces are integrated at the service layer so that I'm getting the same story no matter what my interaction is. So in this video series, we're going to take a look at how to put together a microservice and implement it in Swing. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.